My armor concealed the
No
truth
matter what
until I
happens,
stood unmasked before the alien
my
princess.
heart
The
is
sky above
yours.
the planet shimmered with colors humans could only imagine. Waves of soft pink and gold light rolled across the atmosphere, blending with streaks of blue that glimmered like ribbons. From the surface, the alien city floated like a jewel in the air, its towers glinting under the alien sun. Bridges made of transparent material connected the towers, and at every corner, creatures of different shapes and sizes moved gracefully along walkways. Some floated effortlessly above the ground, while others walked or rolled in smooth, mechanical contraptions. The city hummed with life, a symphony of alien engineering and artistry. Among the throngs of aliens, one figure stood apart, drawing subtle but curious glances. A human traveler had arrived, clad in a suit of advanced armor that covered him completely. The armor was smooth and metallic, yet elegant, shaped to fit a human form but designed to survive the planet's thin, sometimes poisonous air. Its surface reflected the light in gentle waves, and small, intricate devices hummed softly as they adjusted to the environment. The armor was more than just protection. It was a shield of anonymity. No one could tell who the human was under it, and this mystery fascinated the citizens of the floating city. He moved carefully, observing everything. Each step was calculated, yet he carried himself with a natural grace that made the armor seem less like a cage and more like an extension of his body. His eyes, visible only through a subtle visor, darted from bridge to bridge, noting patterns in the alien population. He saw merchants exchanging glowing crystals, children laughing while floating over water channels, and scholars deeply engaged with devices that projected light and sound into the air. Every interaction was a puzzle, every glance a story waiting to be discovered. The human had come with a mission, though it was simple in his mind. He wanted to understand the alien civilization, collect knowledge, and return home safely. Yet, as he walked among them, he realized that his presence sparked curiosity and speculation. Some aliens whispered as he passed, pointing at the smooth armor and the way he carried himself. One group of scholars paused mid-conversation, exchanging theories about whether the armored human was a diplomat, a warrior, or someone of higher rank. Others simply stared in wonder, fascinated by the human's unfamiliar form and the elegance with which he moved. At the center of the city stood a grand palace, a structure unlike anything he had ever seen. Its spires reached high into the sky, catching the light like strings of precious stones. Water flowed along delicate channels around the palace, reflecting light onto walls carved with patterns that shifted subtly as if alive. This palace was home to the alien princess, a figure of immense respect and curiosity among her people. She was known for her wisdom, her calm demeanor, and her insatiable curiosity about other worlds. Though she rarely allowed outsiders into her presence, she had heard of the human's arrival and was intrigued by the mystery surrounding him. The human paused outside the palace gates, studying the intricate carvings and the flowing water channels. His armor's sensors picked up the faintest shifts in air pressure, the soft vibrations of movement across the palace floors, and the gentle hum of energy that flowed from the city's structures. He felt a thrill of anticipation and a subtle tinge of anxiety. He knew that approaching the palace was more than just a physical act. It was a step into a world full of social customs, complex rituals, and expectations he could barely understand. As he moved closer, he noticed beings approaching him, not in hostility but in a cautious, curious manner. Their forms were elegant, with long limbs and glimmering skin that changed color with emotion. Their eyes, wide and expressive, studied him carefully. A low hum accompanied their movements, a form of greeting or acknowledgement. The human inclined his head slightly, a gesture he hoped would convey respect without causing offense. Inside the palace, The alien princess observed him through a series of crystalline windows and mirrors that allowed her to see without being seen. She was tall, her posture regal yet relaxed, and her eyes held a spark of amusement. She had encountered humans before, but never one who arrived clad in full armor and moved with such careful observation. Most humans were impulsive, loud, or overly curious, but this one seemed different. He moved with patience and consideration, as if he were learning from every breath of air and every subtle movement around him. Curiosity drew her closer to the observation point. She watched as the human navigated a bridge, helping an alien child who had accidentally floated too close to the edge. Without removing his gloves, he reached out carefully and guided the child back to safety. The child giggled and the human nodded gently, a small movement of acknowledgement. She noticed that he did not seek praise, nor did he linger to show off his skill. Instead, he moved on, observing the patterns of light on the water and the interactions of the people around him. The princess felt a mixture of intrigue and admiration. She had seen many outsiders, but few had the patience, respect, and subtle intelligence that the human displayed. Her advisors suggested that she remain distant. Humans could be unpredictable, and revealing her presence too early might unsettle him. Yet, she found herself drawn to him, wanting to understand who this mysterious figure truly was beneath the shining armor. The human continued exploring the city, moving through markets where vendors displayed bioluminescent fruits, tools, and fabrics that shifted color and texture. He observed how the citizens interacted with one another, noticing patterns of respect, hierarchy, and playfulness. He approached a small fountain where water flowed upward instead of down, defying gravity in a mesmerizing display. Children floated near it, giggling and splashing. The human kneeled, adjusting a small device on his armor to better analyze the water's properties. A child approached him, pointing curiously at the intricate controls. Without speaking, he extended a hand, allowing the child to touch the device safely. The child's eyes lit up, and the human nodded once, encouragingly. Through these small acts, he began to earn trust. Citizens whispered to one another, noting that he was gentle, intelligent, and careful. He was not a threat, yet he was not entirely understood. The aura of mystery around him grew stronger, and with it, the princess's fascination deepened. She decided that she would meet him, but not yet. She would observe further, allowing him to demonstrate his character in the natural flow of daily life. Later, as the alien sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of violet and orange, the human approached a central plaza. Here, a group of scholars struggled with a device that projected intricate patterns of light and sound. It was designed to translate thought into visual representation, but it had malfunctioned. Observing quietly, he noticed a small alignment issue in one of the crystal nodes. With careful, precise movements, he adjusted it, and the device responded instantly, projecting smooth patterns of color and music that delighted the scholars. The scholars stared in astonishment, then bowed slightly to the human. He inclined his head, offering a gesture of humility and respect. He did not speak. His words were not necessary. His actions had conveyed understanding, intelligence, and respect for their work. The incident became the talk of the city, a story of a mysterious human who had arrived in shining armor and quietly demonstrated wisdom beyond what anyone had expected. At night, the human stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Lights shimmered across the water channels, bridges, and towers. He felt a strange sense of belonging, though he knew he was far from home. The city was complex and alien, yet its rhythms and patterns resonated with him. He adjusted a small panel on his armor, monitoring environmental conditions and making minor corrections to ensure comfort. He was careful, not just for himself, but for those around him, aware that a single mistake could cause confusion or alarm. In her private chambers, the alien princess watched him from afar. The glow of the city reflected in her eyes, and a small smile played on her lips. She admired the human's patience, his intelligence, and the subtle kindness he displayed. She sensed that there was more to him than his armor revealed, and her curiosity grew stronger with every passing moment. She wondered what drove him, what stories he carried, and what wisdom he might share if she ever allowed him closer. As the night deepened, the human found a quiet spot near the palace gardens. Strange, glowing plants surrounded him, and the air was filled with a delicate fragrance. He knelt briefly to examine a small flower, noting its structure and the subtle way it responded to touch. Though he was far from home, he felt a sense of peace. The city, its people, and even the mysterious princess were no longer just objects of study. They were becoming a world he respected and in some ways admired. The day ended with a quiet sense of anticipation. The human had observed, helped, and connected in small, meaningful ways. The city buzzed with whispers of the mysterious armored traveler, and the alien princess contemplated her next move. She knew that to truly understand him, she would have to interact directly, yet she also knew that the timing must be right. The human was patient, intelligent, and kind. He was also cautious and mysterious. The moment of revelation, when armor would no longer hide identity, was still far off, but the path toward it had begun. In the floating city, under the alien stars, a human traveler moved quietly yet purposefully. He did not seek fame, reward, or acknowledgement. Instead, he sought understanding, connection, and the chance to learn from a civilization unlike any he had known. The citizens of the city and the princess in her chambers would remember him, not as an intruder, but as a mysterious visitor whose heart and mind shone through even the strongest armor. The night carried a soft hum of anticipation, as if the city itself waited for what was to come. The armored human, unaware of the attention he had already drawn, rested briefly, preparing for the days ahead. His journey was just beginning, and the bonds, discoveries, and revelations that awaited would soon challenge not just the human, but the entire city and its princess. The morning sun rose slowly over the floating city, casting a warm glow on the towers and bridges that stretched across the sky. The human traveler, still clad in his smooth, reflective armor, moved carefully along a narrow bridge that connected two high towers. From this height, the city appeared like a living map of light and movement. Citizens floated along walkways, their luminous skin shimmering in the sunlight. Devices hummed softly, projecting information in holographic patterns that danced in the air. The human paused to observe, his eyes scanning patterns in the city's rhythm. He noted the way children played, how merchants displayed goods, and how scholars interacted with their intricate machines. Each interaction held a lesson, and he absorbed every detail with the patience and care of someone who knew that understanding took time. The armor protected him from the environment, but it also hid him from the curious gazes of those who might judge too quickly. Here, he could move freely, learning without interference, yet he remained keenly aware of every subtle shift around him. The alien princess had been watching him for some time. From her private observation chamber, she followed his movements with growing fascination. She had sent whispers of challenges before, small tests meant to observe his reactions and character. Today, she intended to escalate them, to see how he would handle situations that required not only intelligence but also creativity, compassion, and patience. As the human approached a marketplace, he noticed a problem unfolding. A young alien child had become separated from a caretaker and was wandering too close to the edge of a floating platform. The child's glowing skin shifted with panic, small tendrils of energy flickering nervously. Without hesitation, the human extended a hand, careful to avoid startling the child. With gentle guidance, he brought the child back to safety. The caretaker arrived moments later, relief flooding their expression. They bowed slightly to the human, gratitude evident in their posture, and he nodded once, acknowledging the gesture without needing to speak. The princess watched this quietly, noting the subtlety of his actions. He did not seek praise, nor did he linger. He understood the importance of helping without creating dependency or fear. His armor concealed his identity, but his actions revealed character in a way words never could. She leaned forward, curiosity sharpening in her eyes. Who was this human? What motivated him to act with such care and intelligence? She could not see his face, but she could sense the thoughtfulness in every movement. The human continued through the market, observing vendors with bioluminescent fruits, shimmering fabrics, and delicate tools that emitted soft sounds when touched. One vendor struggled with a machine designed to measure energy patterns in the air. The device had stopped functioning, its projections flickering irregularly. The human approached cautiously, studying the device. He knelt, his fingers adjusting tiny components with precision. Almost immediately, the device stabilized, projecting smooth waves of color and light. The vendor clapped lightly, then bowed. The human inclined his head in acknowledgement and moved on. He did not linger for applause or attention. Every action was purposeful, guided by curiosity and respect. Citizens began to notice this pattern. The armored human was not just moving through the city. He was interacting with it in a way that enhanced it, quietly improving the flow of life and the harmony of the city's energy. By mid-morning, the human arrived at a library suspended in the air, a massive structure filled with floating scrolls, crystal tablets, and devices that stored knowledge from centuries. Scholars gathered around complex machinery that translated thought into visual patterns. They struggled to align the nodes of a projection system, and the images flickered inconsistently. Observing quietly, the human noticed a small misalignment in one of the nodes. He adjusted it with careful precision, and immediately the projection stabilized, displaying patterns that danced beautifully in the air. The scholars gasped in admiration, bowing slightly to the human. He acknowledged them with a simple nod, never overemphasizing his role. He understood that knowledge was not a tool for personal gain, but a gift to be shared and nurtured. His actions drew whispers among the citizens, spreading tales of a mysterious human who moved silently through their world, quietly improving it and inspiring those who witnessed him. The princess had followed him to the library, unseen. She observed how he interacted with the scholars, how he communicated without speaking, and how the city itself seemed to respond to his presence. There was a subtle harmony in his actions, a rhythm that suggested deep understanding and care. She decided to escalate her tests. The next step would require him to engage directly with the citizens and demonstrate not only intelligence, but empathy and creativity in solving problems that mattered to the people. A festival was approaching, celebrating the alignment of the twin moons with the central tower of the city. During this festival, citizens displayed artistic creations, performed demonstrations of skill, and shared knowledge. The princess decided to involve the human subtly, giving him opportunities to show his character without revealing his identity. The first challenge came in the form of a young alien struggling to navigate a complex art installation. The child's task was to arrange glowing orbs into patterns that told a story of the city's history. Observing from a distance, the human noticed that the child had the idea but could not execute it because the orbs were too heavy and moved unpredictably. With careful adjustments, he stabilized the orbs without touching the child, allowing the pattern to form correctly. The child's eyes lit up in wonder, and the crowd watching murmured their approval. Next, he encountered a group of scholars attempting to explain a complex sequence of events from their history using visual projections. The projections misaligned, causing confusion among the audience. The human knelt, adjusting the nodes, and the sequences flowed seamlessly. The scholars exchanged impressed glances, silently acknowledging the skill and insight of this mysterious visitor. Throughout the day, the human moved from challenge to challenge, never speaking, never seeking acknowledgement, yet each action left a mark on the city. The citizens began to see him not as an outsider, but as someone who could help bridge gaps in understanding and harmony. His presence created a subtle transformation in the city, inspiring cooperation and admiration. Meanwhile, the princess observed each interaction carefully. She noted his patience, intelligence, and subtle kindness. Unlike others who might seek recognition or dominance, he acted quietly, letting his actions speak. She began to wonder about the mind beneath the armor. What experiences had shaped him? What understanding did he carry from his own world? The mystery deepened, and her fascination grew stronger with each passing hour. By evening, the human found himself at the palace gardens, a space filled with floating plants and gently glowing streams. Citizens wandered through the gardens, children played, and artists displayed delicate sculptures that shimmered in the light. He knelt briefly to observe a plant that responded to touch, recording data with small adjustments to his armor's sensors. His movements were careful and respectful, ensuring that none of the living creations were harmed. A young alien approached, curious about his actions. The human extended a hand, allowing the child to touch the plant safely. The child's eyes sparkled with delight, and the human nodded in encouragement. He had no desire for praise. Understanding and shared curiosity were reward enough. This small act, unnoticed by many, reflected the essence of his character: patience, respect, and a desire to learn while helping others. The princess, observing from her chamber, felt a growing admiration. She realized that understanding this human required more than observation. It required engagement. Yet she was cautious. Revealing herself too soon could disrupt the natural flow that had allowed the human to demonstrate his character so beautifully. She decided to continue subtle tests, observing his interactions with both individuals and groups, seeing how he balanced intelligence, empathy, and creativity. Later, the human found a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The lights from towers, bridges, and flowing water reflected in his visor, creating a kaleidoscope of color. He adjusted sensors on his armor to better observe the energy patterns and the subtle movements of citizens below. Despite being in an alien world, he felt a growing connection to the city and its people. He was learning, adapting, and discovering not only the culture of the aliens, but also the ways in which he could contribute meaningfully. As night fell, the city glowed like a constellation of living stars. Citizens moved gracefully, children played, and scholars continued their experiments. The human, still in armor, observed the scene with quiet satisfaction. He had navigated challenges, assisted where needed, and learned from the subtle cues of the alien world. Yet he knew there was more to come. The princess's fascination suggested that their paths would intersect more directly, and he wondered what that encounter would reveal. In her private chamber, the princess reflected on the day's events. She had seen intelligence, kindness, patience, and creativity, all embodied in a single human who remained hidden beneath armor. She realized that understanding him would require careful observation, but she also felt a growing excitement. There was potential for a bond that could teach both worlds something profound. Her curiosity was not just academic, it was personal, rooted in admiration and the subtle recognition of character that transcended species. The day ended with a sense of quiet anticipation. The human rested briefly in a secluded area of the palace grounds, reflecting on his observations and the small ways he had assisted the city's citizens. Though he had moved anonymously, his actions had begun to leave impressions, and he sensed that the next phase of his journey would require greater engagement. He was ready, patient, and curious, understanding that the greatest discoveries often came not from immediate answers but from careful observation, respect, and thoughtful interaction. The night carried the soft hum of the city, a rhythm of life that was both alien and familiar. The human, still hidden beneath armor, felt a connection growing, subtle but undeniable to the floating city and its people. Above, the stars shone brightly, reflecting the promise of new experiences, discoveries, and the potential for meaningful bonds. And in the distance, unseen yet attentive, the alien princess watched, waiting for the moment when she would finally meet the human face to face and uncover the truths hidden beneath the reflective armor. The morning sun bathed the floating city in a soft golden glow, reflecting off the towers and water channels that ran like rivers through the air. The human traveler moved through the city with the same quiet grace as before, his armor gleaming in the light. Today, however, he sensed that the day would be different. There was a subtle energy in the air, a feeling of anticipation that the citizens themselves seemed to share. Whispers followed him as he moved, but they were no longer merely of curiosity. They carried admiration and respect. The alien princess had been watching from her chambers high above the city. She had followed his actions through the mirrored observation points, and she had been impressed by the way he quietly helped citizens, solved problems, and demonstrated understanding without ever needing recognition. Today, she intended to interact with him more directly, though still in a way that allowed him to act naturally. She wanted to see how he would respond when faced with situations that required not only intelligence and patience, but also trust and collaboration. As the human moved through the central plaza, he noticed a group of citizens struggling to coordinate a festival display. This was no ordinary festival. It celebrated the history of the city through light, sound, and movement. Citizens were tasked with creating synchronized patterns that represented the growth of their civilization. The human observed from a distance, noting the confusion and hesitation among the participants. Nodes of energy were misaligned, and the patterns flickered irregularly, threatening to disrupt the entire display. Without hesitation, the human approached, careful not to alarm anyone. He knelt and adjusted one of the nodes, aligning it with subtle precision. The pattern stabilized, and the colors and shapes flowed in a mesmerizing sequence. Citizens gasped in delight, and some bowed slightly, acknowledging the help of the mysterious human in shining armor. He nodded once quietly, then stepped back, letting the participants continue without interference. The princess observed the scene, intrigued by his subtle guidance. He did not take control, nor did he claim credit. Instead, he facilitated cooperation, allowing others to shine while offering just enough assistance to ensure success. She made a note to herself. This human understood balance, respect, and the importance of collaboration. These qualities were rare, even among her own people, and they fascinated her. Later, he was approached by a scholar who sought help with a device that translated musical vibrations into visual patterns. The device had been malfunctioning for days, creating chaotic displays that frustrated both scholars and citizens. The human examined the device carefully, adjusting its components with patience and skill. Slowly, the chaotic patterns transformed into harmonious waves of color that moved in rhythm with the music. The scholar's eyes widened in amazement, and the human nodded silently, satisfied that the device was now functioning correctly. Word of his skill and kindness spread quickly. Children began to follow him at a safe distance, curious about the stranger who moved through their city with such quiet purpose. They observed his interactions, mimicked his gestures, and began learning from him without even realizing it. Parents smiled, noting the positive influence of his presence. The human, unaware of the growing admiration, continued his day as he had every day before, observing, assisting, and learning. The princess, intrigued, decided it was time to create a more direct challenge. She arranged for a joint project between the human and several citizens, restoring an ancient library that had been abandoned for generations. The library contained knowledge both human and alien, but it had fallen into disrepair. Some sections were damaged, others were incomplete, and many of the devices used to access the knowledge no longer functioned. When the human arrived at the library, he was greeted by a group of scholars and artists, all eager yet uncertain. The project required teamwork, patience, and creative problem-solving. He listened to their explanations, studied the devices, and observed the structure of the library. Without speaking, he began to make subtle adjustments, offering silent guidance through gestures, positioning, and careful interaction. Slowly, the team began to work more efficiently, inspired by his calm confidence and steady presence. Days passed as the restoration continued. The human moved among the scholars, adjusting devices, organizing information, and assisting in repairing damaged sections. He encouraged collaboration, ensuring that each participant contributed according to their strengths. Children were invited to help with lighter tasks, learning about the library's history and the delicate processes involved in preserving knowledge. The princess watched all of this unfold, impressed by the human's ability to inspire others without demanding recognition. One afternoon, a young alien child discovered a hidden compartment in the library containing texts written in both human and alien languages. The child was curious but hesitant, unsure how to proceed. The human knelt beside them, guiding their hands over the texts and helping them interpret the symbols. Together, they deciphered part of a story about the founding of the city. The child's eyes lit up with wonder, and the human smiled beneath his visor, sharing in the child's excitement. The princess observed this moment closely. She realized that the human's influence extended beyond the practical tasks of restoration. He was teaching, inspiring, and connecting with citizens in ways that transcended cultural boundaries. His patience, empathy, and subtle guidance were creating a sense of unity among the participants. She felt a growing respect for him, tempered by a desire to understand the person beneath the armor. As the project neared completion, the human encountered a particularly challenging task: repairing a projection device that contained centuries of recorded knowledge. The device required precise adjustments, and any mistake could damage the information permanently. He approached carefully, analyzing the problem and considering various solutions. After a few moments of observation, he made a series of adjustments, testing each carefully. Slowly, the device began to function correctly, projecting historical records in vibrant patterns of light and sound. The citizens gathered around, marveling at the restored knowledge. Scholars and children alike expressed their gratitude, bowing respectfully to the human. He acknowledged them with a quiet nod, his actions speaking louder than words ever could. The princess, watching from her hidden chamber, felt a deepening sense of admiration. He had demonstrated intelligence, patience, and creativity, but more importantly, he had shown kindness, humility, and a willingness to work collaboratively with beings unlike himself. That evening, as the sun set over the city, the human took a quiet moment to reflect. He had navigated a complex social and cultural landscape, assisted in meaningful ways, and learned more about this alien civilization than he had ever imagined. His armor, while protective, had allowed him to observe and act without interference, but he knew that one day he would have to reveal himself. The thought of that moment brought a mixture of anticipation and uncertainty. How would the citizens react when they saw the human beneath the armor? How would the princess respond? The princess, meanwhile, prepared her next step. She wanted to meet him directly, but she understood the importance of timing. She arranged for a small gathering in the library, where she could interact with him in a controlled but natural environment. She was curious not only about his knowledge and skills, but also about his character, his motivations, and the perspective he carried from his own world. The following morning, the human arrived at the library as planned. The princess greeted him with a polite nod, her presence calm yet commanding. She spoke softly, her voice carrying a melody that seemed to harmonize with the city itself. "I have observed your work," she said. "Your contributions have been remarkable." The human inclined his head, a gesture of respect. He had expected acknowledgement, but hearing her words directly carried a different weight. There was no armor to obscure his intentions in this moment. His actions had already spoken, but her recognition added a new layer of understanding. She continued, "We have a project that requires your insight. It is delicate and complex, involving the restoration of knowledge and the understanding of our history. I would like you to assist directly, alongside our scholars and citizens." He nodded again, prepared to contribute. Together they moved through the library, examining devices, texts, and projection systems. The princess observed his methods closely, noting the patience, intelligence, and subtle guidance he offered. He did not dominate the process. He facilitated, encouraged, and inspired. Each action was deliberate and thoughtful, creating an environment of learning and collaboration. Children gathered nearby, curious about the mysterious human who had become a quiet leader in their midst. The human interacted with them gently, guiding their hands, explaining concepts, and encouraging exploration. The princess watched the interactions, her admiration growing. This human was unlike anyone she had encountered. He had not arrived to conquer, lead, or take control. He had arrived to understand, contribute, and inspire. As days turned into weeks, the project neared completion. The library had been restored to a state that honored both alien and human knowledge. Devices functioned flawlessly, texts were organized, and citizens of all ages had participated in the process. The human had become a fixture of the library, respected, admired, and trusted. One afternoon, the princess approached him with a quiet smile. "You have accomplished much," she said, "not just in restoring the library, but in how you have influenced our people. You have shown patience, understanding, and creativity. You have inspired unity." The human inclined his head in acknowledgement. "I only wish to learn and assist," he said softly. His words, though simple, carried sincerity and humility. The princess nodded, understanding that words were secondary to actions. She had observed enough to know that the human's character was genuine, his intentions pure. Yet she remained curious. Who was he beneath the armor? What experiences shaped him? The answers remained hidden, and the mystery continued to deepen. As night fell, the library glowed softly, illuminated by floating lights and projections of restored knowledge. The human stood quietly, observing the results of their collective effort. He felt a sense of accomplishment, not for himself, but for the people he had helped. The princess watched from a balcony above, feeling a quiet anticipation. The day had revealed much about the human's character, but there was still more to discover. The bond between them was growing, rooted in respect, shared purpose, and a subtle recognition of character that transcended species. The city settled into a gentle hum of nighttime activity. Citizens returned to their homes, children rested, and scholars recorded their findings. The human, still under armor, reflected on the experiences of the day. He had connected with the city, contributed meaningfully, and inspired admiration without seeking it. He understood that the journey ahead would require continued patience and care, and he was prepared for whatever challenges awaited. The princess, watching the city from her chamber, felt a sense of quiet wonder. She had observed intelligence, kindness, and creativity in a being from another world. She had seen patience, humility, and the ability to inspire others without seeking recognition. She was more intrigued than ever, eager to see how this human would continue to navigate the complexities of their society, and curious about the moment when the armor would finally be removed. The morning light spilled over the floating city, illuminating the towers, bridges, and flowing water channels in soft gold. The human traveler, still wearing his sleek armor, moved purposefully through the palace gardens. The air was filled with the gentle hum of energy from the city and the faint fragrance of alien flowers that glowed softly in the sunlight. Today felt different to him, though he did not yet understand why. There was an anticipation in the air, subtle yet undeniable, as though the city itself knew that change was coming. The alien princess had spent the night reflecting on the human's actions. His intelligence, patience, and kindness had impressed her deeply. Yet beyond the admiration, there was a curiosity she could not ignore. Who was this human beneath the armor? What life had shaped him into someone so considerate, so thoughtful, and so skilled? She had observed him long enough to know that actions alone did not reveal the full story. Today, she decided, would be a day of more direct engagement. She arranged a small gathering in the library that had been restored under the human's guidance. Scholars, children, and citizens of the city were invited, all eager to witness the interaction. The human arrived, adjusting minor components on his armor as he prepared to assist. He noticed the gathering immediately, sensing the princess's presence before she spoke. She greeted him with a gentle nod, her eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and anticipation. "You have done remarkable work," she said softly, her voice carrying a musical quality that seemed to harmonize with the light and energy of the city. "Not only have you restored our knowledge, but you have inspired unity, creativity, and understanding among our people." The human inclined his head, acknowledging her words. "I only wish to contribute," he said simply. His words, though few, carried sincerity and humility. He had learned that in this world, actions spoke louder than words, and he had sought to demonstrate his respect and understanding through every gesture. The princess smiled, a quiet expression of approval and curiosity. "There is one final part of the library that requires attention," she said. "It is a section containing ancient projections, records of our history, and knowledge that has been inaccessible for generations. It will require both skill and patience to restore fully." The human nodded, understanding the challenge. Together they approached the section, and he began examining the projection devices. His movements were precise, careful, and deliberate. The princess observed closely, noting the way he adjusted delicate components, calibrated energy flows, and synchronized the patterns of light with subtle gestures. It was clear that he understood the technology at a level few could reach, and yet he remained patient, teaching and guiding without overt instruction. Children gathered nearby, curious about the human and the princess working together. The human knelt to their level, showing them how small adjustments could influence the projections. He encouraged them to try, gently guiding their hands and praising their efforts. The children's faces lit up with wonder, and the princess watched, silently impressed by his ability to inspire and teach without dominating. As the projection stabilized, a subtle hum filled the room. Images of the city's past shimmered in the air, scenes of history and culture that had long been forgotten. Scholars whispered in awe, and citizens watched with fascination. The human had not only restored the devices, but had made it possible for everyone present to experience the city's history in a new and meaningful way. The princess felt a growing admiration. She realized that the human's contributions went beyond practical skill. He had a rare combination of intelligence, empathy, and patience that allowed him to connect with others effortlessly. She wanted to understand him fully, to see the person behind the armor, but she also understood the importance of timing. Revealing herself or asking him to remove the armor too soon could disrupt the natural flow of trust and understanding they had built. Later, as the day progressed, she guided the human toward a delicate task involving an intricate pattern of energy projections that symbolized the city's unity. The projections were misaligned, and the challenge required not only technical skill, but also a deep understanding of balance and harmony. The human studied the patterns carefully, analyzing the flow of energy and the subtle interactions between projections. With careful adjustments, he aligned the patterns perfectly, creating a display that was both beautiful and meaningful. The princess observed silently, her admiration deepening. She realized that the human's abilities were more than mechanical skill. They were an extension of his mind and character. He understood harmony, balance, and the importance of subtle guidance. His actions were deliberate, thoughtful, and deeply respectful of the culture around him. As evening approached, the human and the princess took a moment to step onto a balcony overlooking the city. The towers glowed softly in the fading light, and water channels reflected the colors of the sky in gentle waves. The human adjusted his armor's sensors to better observe the energy patterns of the city, and the princess watched his movements, fascinated by the quiet focus and precision he displayed. "You have a remarkable ability to understand this world," she said softly. "Not many could approach our culture with such care and insight." The human inclined his head. "I only try to observe and learn," he replied. "I want to understand, not interfere." The princess smiled. "And yet, you have influenced our people in ways that even we could not imagine. Your presence has created harmony, inspiration, and understanding. You have done more than restore knowledge. You have brought out the best in our citizens." The human looked out over the city, considering her words. He felt a quiet satisfaction not for himself, but for the impact he had made. He had acted with patience, empathy, and thoughtfulness, and now he saw the results reflected in the lives and expressions of the citizens around him. The princess, observing him closely, felt a sense of anticipation. She had learned much about his character through his actions, yet she still longed to see the human face beneath the armor. She wondered what expressions, thoughts, and emotions might be hidden beneath the reflective surface. Her curiosity was not only intellectual but deeply personal. She wanted to understand him fully, to see the courage it had taken to act with such integrity and kindness in a world so unfamiliar to him. As night fell, the city was bathed in a gentle glow. Citizens returned to their homes, children rested, and scholars recorded their findings. The human moved quietly through the library one last time, checking the projections, aligning energy nodes, and ensuring that every device functioned smoothly. His presence was calm and steady, a subtle force that inspired confidence and admiration without ever demanding attention. The princess remained in her chamber, reflecting on the human's journey. She realized that his impact went beyond the tasks he had completed. He had shown patience, humility, and kindness, qualities that were rare even among her own people. She felt a growing connection, a sense of trust and admiration that was difficult to put into words. She knew that the moment for revelation was approaching, and she felt a mixture of excitement and curiosity about what lay ahead. The following morning, the princess invited the human to a private ceremony in the central hall of the library. Scholars and citizens had prepared a small demonstration of the restored projections, and the human was asked to present the final results. As he stepped forward, the citizens watched silently, aware of the significance of this moment. The human moved with quiet confidence, adjusting the final energy flows and ensuring that the projections displayed the intended harmony and beauty. When the projection stabilized, the hall was filled with vibrant colors and patterns that told the story of the city's past, present, and aspirations for the future. Citizens gasped in wonder, and scholars exchanged impressed glances. The human had not only restored the knowledge but had made it accessible and meaningful for everyone present. The princess stepped forward, her expression calm yet filled with anticipation. "You have done more than we could have hoped," she said softly. "Your contributions, patience, and insight have created something truly remarkable." The human inclined his head, acknowledging her words. "It was a collective effort," he said simply. "I only guided and assisted." The princess smiled. "And yet, it is your guidance that has inspired this harmony. You have influenced our people, our scholars, and even our children in ways that will be remembered for generations. You have brought light, understanding, and unity. There was a pause, a quiet moment in which the air seemed to hold its breath. The human's armor reflected the soft glow of the projections, and the princess studied him closely. She could see the care in his movements, the thoughtfulness in his gestures, and the quiet courage in his posture. She realized that the next step was inevitable, the moment to reveal the human beneath the armor. The princess spoke gently, her voice carrying both authority and warmth. There is no need to remain hidden any longer. You have shown your character, your skill, and your kindness. It is time for all of us to see the person behind the armor. The human paused, considering her words. He understood the significance of the moment. The armor had protected him, allowed him to observe and act without interference, but it had also concealed his identity. Now he would reveal himself fully, trusting that the admiration, respect, and connection he had built would be enough to bridge the gap between mystery and understanding. With careful, deliberate movements, he reached up and unclasped the armor around his head. Slowly, the reflective surface separated, revealing the human face beneath. Gasps of wonder filled the hall, not in fear but in admiration and awe. The citizens and scholars saw not just a human, but a figure who had acted with integrity, kindness, and intelligence. The princess's eyes widened, reflecting a mixture of recognition and respect. The human looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of those he had guided and inspired. He offered a quiet smile, acknowledging their appreciation without arrogance or pride. In that moment the mystery was lifted, but the admiration and respect remained. The princess stepped closer, her expression softening. She had observed his character for days, and now she saw the person who had inspired her and her people. "Welcome," she said softly, her voice filled with warmth. "We are honored to see you as you truly are." The human inclined his head in acknowledgement. "Thank you," he replied simply. "It is an honor to be part of this world, even briefly." The hall was filled with quiet appreciation. The human had revealed himself, yet his impact remained undiminished. He had demonstrated patience, kindness, intelligence, and creativity. And now, face to face, the citizens and the princess could see the person who had inspired them. The bond between human and alien, observer and citizen, mystery and understanding, had deepened in ways that neither words nor gestures alone could fully convey. The hall fell silent after the human removed his armor. Every eye was on him, but the silence was not of fear. It was a reverent stillness, a quiet acknowledgement of the integrity, patience, and intelligence that he had shown over the past days. Citizens and scholars alike took in the sight of the human face beneath the reflective visor, and for many, it was a moment of wonder. The mystery that had followed him throughout the city had been solved, yet the admiration remained. The princess stepped closer, her eyes reflecting curiosity and respect. She had observed him for days, witnessing his intelligence, empathy, and creativity. Now, seeing him unmasked, she realized that his character transcended appearances. She noted the quiet confidence in his posture, the gentle kindness in his expression, and the thoughtful attentiveness in his gaze. He was not imposing, yet his presence carried a weight of understanding and care that few could match. "You have shown remarkable skill and patience," she said softly, "not just in restoring the library, but in how you have inspired our people, guided our children, and encouraged cooperation among our citizens. Your influence has gone beyond the tasks you undertook. It has shaped the very harmony of our city." The human inclined his head, accepting the praise with humility. "I only wish to observe, learn, and assist," he said simply. "The city has much to teach, and I am grateful for the opportunity to understand it." The princess smiled, her curiosity now tinged with admiration. "You have not only learned but have also taught us lessons about patience, collaboration, and care." Few outsiders ever achieve such understanding. You have done this without demanding recognition, without seeking reward. That is rare, and it is valuable. Citizens began to step closer, offering bows and gestures of respect. Scholars, previously cautious and skeptical of a human in their midst, now expressed gratitude openly. Children whispered excitedly to one another, amazed at the human who had guided them through understanding without dominance or force. The atmosphere in the hall shifted from curiosity to admiration, a recognition that the human had earned not just skill, but respect. The princess observed the interactions, noting the calm and confidence the human displayed. He did not appear startled or overwhelmed by the attention. Instead, he responded with gentle acknowledgement, letting his actions and expressions convey sincerity. She realized that this was the essence of his character: humility coupled with competence, care paired with understanding. It was a combination that few possessed, yet he displayed it effortlessly. As the day progressed, the princess guided the human to explore other sections of the library. There were areas that had remained untouched, knowledge that had been inaccessible for generations. Together, they examined ancient texts, projection devices, and archives that held the city's history and culture. The human approached each task with focus and care, ensuring that nothing was damaged and that every discovery was shared thoughtfully with the princess and the scholars present. At one point, the human discovered a collection of holographic projections that illustrated historical trade routes and interactions with neighboring civilizations. The information was incomplete and difficult to interpret, but he patiently analyzed the sequences, cross-referencing with other devices and texts. Slowly, the patterns aligned, revealing a rich tapestry of the city's history and its connections with other worlds. The scholars watched in awe as the human's quiet diligence brought clarity to information that had remained obscure for generations. The princess observed this closely. She realized that his contributions were not merely technical, they were intellectual and creative. He had an ability to see patterns, connect dots, and interpret information in ways that enriched the understanding of everyone around him. Yet he did so without seeking acclaim. His motivation was pure: curiosity, understanding, and a desire to contribute positively. As evening approached, the princess invited the human to the palace gardens. The floating plants glowed softly in the twilight, casting gentle reflections across the water channels. Citizens and children gathered nearby, curious to observe the human outside the library, in the open spaces of the city he had helped improve. The human walked slowly among them, interacting with the children, showing them patterns in the glowing plants, and explaining how energy flowed through the city. His voice was calm and steady, and his gestures gentle, inviting understanding without dictating it. The children followed closely, fascinated by the human who had guided them through learning and discovery. They asked questions, and he answered with patience, demonstrating concepts and encouraging exploration. Citizens watched with admiration, recognizing the quiet influence he had on the next generation. The princess, observing from a distance, felt a growing sense of connection to him. She had seen his mind, his actions, and now she was witnessing his ability to inspire, guide, and care in real time. After a while, the princess approached him directly. "You have done more than we could have imagined," she said softly. "You have influenced our citizens, restored knowledge, and inspired understanding. But there is more I wish to know. What drives you to act with such care, intelligence, and patience?" The human paused, considering her question. "I have learned that understanding comes not from force or dominance," he replied. "It comes from observation, from patience, and from listening. Every place, every people have lessons to teach. I wish to learn them and, if possible, to help others learn as well." The princess nodded slowly, impressed by the clarity and humility in his response. "Few understand this," she said. "Most seek power, recognition, or reward. You have sought none of these, yet your actions have created respect, admiration, and harmony. The human smiled faintly. I do not act for recognition, he said. I act because I wish to understand and contribute. The respect comes naturally when one acts thoughtfully and with care. The princess felt a deep admiration and curiosity. She realized that the human's presence had changed not only the city, but also her understanding of what a visitor from another world could bring. He had bridged cultures, inspired collaboration, and brought clarity to knowledge that had been obscured for centuries. She wondered what more could be learned from him, and what the future might hold if his guidance continued to shape the city. As night deepened, the citizens slowly departed, leaving the human and the princess alone in the gardens. The glowing plants cast soft reflections on the water, and the hum of energy in the city created a gentle rhythm. The princess stepped closer, her expression thoughtful. "There is one more thing," she said softly. "I have observed you closely, and I have seen your intelligence, patience, and character. I wish to know you fully, beyond the armor, beyond the actions. Would you allow me to learn more about you, to share insights, experiences, and understanding?" The human regarded her quietly, then nodded. "I would like that," he said simply. "I have learned much here, and I wish to continue learning. I have also learned from observing you and your people. There is much wisdom and understanding here that I could not have imagined." The princess smiled, a mix of warmth and anticipation. "Then let us begin," she said. Together they walked along the glowing paths of the palace gardens, discussing knowledge, culture, and the intricacies of their respective worlds. The conversation flowed naturally, a mixture of curiosity, observation, and shared respect. Each question was met with thoughtful consideration, each answer with humility and insight. Over the following days, their collaboration deepened. The human shared knowledge of his world, offering perspectives on problem-solving, communication, and observation. The princess shared the rich history, culture, and understanding of her city, illuminating patterns that only a native could fully appreciate. Together, they explored new ideas, finding ways to connect knowledge and creativity across worlds. Citizens continued to watch and learn, inspired by the human's patience and skill, and by the princess's openness to learning. Children followed his guidance eagerly, absorbing lessons through observation and practice. Scholars exchanged insights, marveling at the way the human and princess collaborated, blending intelligence, creativity, and understanding in ways that expanded the city's knowledge and cultural depth. In time, the bond between the human and princess became evident to all. It was built on mutual respect, admiration, and curiosity. They had shared challenges, learned from each other, and influenced the city together. Their partnership was not one of dominance or control, but of cooperation, trust, and understanding. Citizens began to see the potential for broader collaboration, inspired by the example set by the human and the princess. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the city, the princess and the human stood together on a balcony overlooking the glowing towers. The city shimmered below them, alive with energy, movement, and harmony. "You have changed this place," she said softly, "not through force or demand, but through care, intelligence, and patience. You have inspired unity, learning, and understanding. Your presence has left a mark that will endure long after you leave." The human looked at the city, then at the princess. "I only wish to contribute where I could," he said. "The city, its people, and you have taught me more than I could have imagined. I am grateful for the opportunity to learn and assist." The princess nodded, her expression reflecting admiration, respect, and a quiet sense of hope. "You have not only contributed to our city," she said. "You have shown us what it means to act with patience, intelligence, and kindness. You have set an example for generations to come." The human smiled faintly, feeling a sense of quiet fulfillment. His journey had begun as an observer, guided by curiosity and a desire to understand. Along the way, he had influenced a city, inspired citizens, and built a connection with a princess whose wisdom and insight matched his own care and curiosity. He had revealed himself, not just physically, but through his actions, his patience, and his intelligence. As the night settled over the city, the human and the princess remained on the balcony, quietly observing the glowing towers and shimmering water channels. There was a sense of completion, yet also anticipation. The city had been enriched by their collaboration, and both knew that the bond they had built would continue to shape understanding, learning, and cooperation. The human had unmasked, yet the influence of his character remained, illuminating not only the city but the potential for harmony, knowledge, and respect across worlds. The stars above reflected the promise of new experiences, discoveries, and shared understanding. The human and the princess, standing side by side, had bridged not just two cultures but two perspectives. They had created a foundation for future collaboration, one built on trust, respect, and the quiet strength of character. In that moment, the city below shimmered with a sense of unity, curiosity, and hope, a testament to what could be achieved when intelligence, patience, and care were allowed to flourish. And so, under the twin moons, the human and the princess looked toward the horizon, ready to explore what lay ahead, not as strangers, but as partners in understanding, learning, and shaping the world together.